Good morning. Or should I say Yate Ebine, which is good morning in Navajo. I just wanted to kind of explain this peyote meeting I went to up in Colorado this weekend at Echo Basin. It was kind of at the base of a sacred Navajo mountain, and I got to learn a lot of things this weekend, and I like to share that experience with you as best I can. I'm going to explain what was explained to me. I may not get it right, so some of you people that might watch this video, I will accept your criticism if I'm wrong about something. I'm just trying to explain it through my eyes and ears of what I heard and what I know. So the first thing I want to explain is the setting up of the teepee. That was an experience all in itself. The first thing we had to do was we had to clear out a 25-foot diameter circle, and we had to level off and dig out the high side of the hill that it was on so that it would be kind of level for us inside. Medicine man that came and put the ceremony on, he's the one that was in charge of setting up the teepee. And so I got to help out with a couple other guys, set the whole thing up. Took a while to dig it out, get all the weeds out. And then what we did was we took two of the poles and put them at the south entrance, and then we put one pole over by the north entrance somewhat, and we laid it across those. The medicine man got in and tied those up. Then we took and stood up the three poles and split one about 4 feet so that it would kind of give it balance. Then the next thing we did was they took another pole and they stacked it, and they ran around with this long rope and tightened that all up. We took another pole, stacked it up, somebody ran around with the long rope, tightened it up, and that went on all the way around the teepee. I'd imagine there were about 20 to 25 poles on it, 30 foot tall, and then all that was all set up, and then we pulled the canvas up it with ropes and kind of got that thing going. The door always faces the south, so that way the door is facing the morning star, is what I'm told. So the south door entrance was here, and throughout the afternoon we got done setting that up. That was really cool, something I've never done before, and kind of honored to have done it. So then the next thing that happened throughout the day was medicine man set up the altar inside. And I wasn't sure what that meant, being raised in a Catholic environment. A little different than that, I guess, but. So the altar was this half moon shape. In the center of it, probably about 8 foot in diameter. And that was made out of sand that they got down at the river. And the sand was piled up about 6 inches wide, maybe 6 inches high. And that medicine man, he spent about 40 minutes tapping down that sand and making it a perfect half moon shape and flat on the top. And when I walked in to kind of help out in there in the beginning, everybody was just telling all the kids and whatnot, watch out for that altar, don't step on that altar, be careful of that altar. So, just so you know, this is not just some kind of go play up in the woods kind of thing. This is really serious business to the people that put these peyote meetings on. And from what I understand, there's a whole bunch of different reasons they might have a peyote meeting. In this case, my neighbor invited me up and it was for his 8-year-old son. He was starting to get older and going to school, doing well in school, doing well in football and sports, and just an all-around good kid. So this was put on to kind of, in a sense, I guess, honor him and wish him the best as he grows up, becoming a man, and encouraging him to do well and stay out of trouble and live a long life. So it is serious to the people involved. So as the day started to fill in, I learned a little bit yesterday about some of the things I saw a couple days ago. First of all, that moon obviously represents the moon. They started a small fire in the beginning, which eventually represents the sun. I'm believing when they light the fire, it is sort of representative of your life, this beginning of your life. Now, all night long, they had about 200 6-foot oak poles that were brought all the way from Oklahoma, and I'm told that the wood is the traditional wood that they burn inside of the teepee. I think there was red elm mixed in with it too. But they don't just go ahead and start throwing wood on a fire like you generally would do at a campfire. These poles all come into the teepee 2 at a time. And the reason it's 4 at a time, it represents the 4 elements. I believe it's earth, wind, fire, and rain that is represented in those. And they keep feeding these sticks in all night, 2 at a time, 4 at a time, but 2 on each side. And they keep stepping them up and feeding them into the fire. And they bring in 4 more. They stack them like so, and they keep burning them into the fire and putting them in steps like so. And what I was told yesterday was the reason they stack them like this is representative of going throughout your life, the steps you take in your life, all throughout. And, towards the end, when it's all over, that represents, the ash represents the sun. And then also on that altar, there's a peyote button placed right here in the center. And the first side of it represents the first 50 years of your life. And the second side of it represents your elderly years growing into the next 50 years of your life. That's how it was told to me. Again, if I'm wrong about any of this stuff, correct me, I'm okay with that. I was there to learn and take it all in. So eventually everybody kind of came in. You have to walk clockwise in there. Come in, everything's clockwise. So I walked clockwise, took my seat over here on the western side, and that's about it for that right now. I'm going to do this in little steps here. I made some little footnotes. Now, as the night progressed, the medicine man, he started to say, I couldn't tell you exactly what he was saying because I don't speak fluent Navajo. Probably 70% of it was all done in Navajo. So I didn't understand it, but I still felt it. And, but he started saying some prayers. They passed around a jar with pieces of corn husk. And got that. And they passed around a jar with tobacco. Passed around another jar with, I believe it was fennel seed. It tasted like fennel seed. And then maybe some type of cherry seeds or something that was given to you to roll into a cigarette, I guess, if you will, but rolled in corn husk. So everybody in there had their own rolled up cigarette. He started to talk more and say say some prayers and whatnot. Then they don't use a Bic lighter to light these cigarettes. In the beginning, they have this perfect 3-foot oak pole. It's so perfectly round, it looks like it was turned on a lathe. And it's about 4 inches in diameter, 3 foot long, and that stick gets placed in the fire. And as it heats up, they gotta blow on it a little bit, get it going. That becomes sort of like the torch. It gets passed around the whole teepee, and everybody lights their cigarette, their corn husk cigarette. And as that's going on, there's more prayers being said. I believe, if I remember right, they use a water drum. It's a drum with a stretched deer skin, I believe, over it. And that was set up. It took about 30 minutes to set up that drum, soak it, squeeze it out, stretch it with rawhide or sinew, tune it up. A lot of these things took a little bit of time. Just even setting up the little fire took about 40 minutes before they started putting the big sticks in. The altar, I'm sure that took all of an hour and a half to set up. But so everything's done in a timely manner. It's not about time, it's about doing it right. And like I said before, it's serious business. So as the night progressed, they started to do more prayers, sing more songs, and different people got to speak throughout the whole night. But every time somebody spoke, throughout the day, I talked to a lot of people there, and they knew where I was from. My accent gives it away. Some people were calling me Boston early on in the day because it was easier to remember. But they asked me about my kids and my family and different things, some of them. And throughout the meeting, when all these folks inside got to say what they wanted to say and talked about things in their lives and wished the boy well in his life coming up, they also addressed me by name, and they were glad that I was there. They wished me well. They don't know my family, my children. They wish them all well. They included them in the prayers, is what they were telling me, that they wanted us all to be alike, like sort of like family in a way, if you will. And it felt really good to be included in it. Obviously, I was the odd man out. I was the only white man, or as they say in Navajo, Billaa'gana, would be white man. And they didn't see me that way. They accepted me. I think they seen more inside of me than outside of me. But it was really cool. I appreciated the way they treated me, and they accepted me, and they want me to come back next July. Next July there's going to be another Peyote meeting up at that spot, which they happen all the time. And in a lot of cases, when they have Peyote meetings, they're not for non-natives at all. They're not allowed. It's a traditional thing to them, and I understand that. I get it all. But I was honored to be a part of this one, I can tell you that. So, I'm sure you're all wondering about the peyote. You know, in my lifetime, I've heard of peyote, and I, like a lot of people out there, probably associate it with some type of hippie culture kind of drug, like magic mushrooms, or just taking it at a recreational type of setting. It's not about that at all. It's nothing to do with that. In fact, inside of the peyote meeting, it was never once referred to or called peyote. It was always called this medicine. This medicine that God gave us, this medicine. It was always called this medicine. And so I'd say throughout the whole night, about 4 or 5 times, the peyote was passed around at different times. And they had 2 forms of it. First came this bowl, this jar, and it had a teaspoon in it. And the jar had granulated like peyote, like ground up. Kind of like green, it looked like an herb. And you scooped it out and you put some in your hand. It didn't matter how much you wanted. You could take a little or a lot. There's no rules on that, at least that I knew. So you scooped a little of that. You ate the peyote. And that was followed by a big gallon jar, which there were 4 of them. Gallon jar of tea, which was a peyote tea. And that came along. You took a sip off of that. Most people were blessing themselves. I was watching what was going on. I didn't understand it all, but every time that peyote came, people were blessing themselves. Some people even would talk to the peyote first before they took it. So I kind of watched and observed. I didn't want to say too much or ask any questions at all. I didn't never ask one question in there. So that went around, and throughout the night they'd play more drums and gourd and sing what's called peyote songs. And most of those were sung in Navajo, so again, I didn't understand what was being said, but once that drum started going, and that shaker started going, and the songs were being sung, I could feel it. My toes were tapping. I was feeling it like I was, I don't know, in a percussion setting, I guess, but I definitely could feel it. In fact, one lady the next morning said to me, "Tim," she goes, "when that music started, I thought you were going to get up and start dancing." I said, "Yeah, I probably should have." But, yeah, I certainly felt it all. And, you know, it was a really cool experience. So again, the peyote went around throughout the night. More prayers being said. Every time somebody got to talk, they included me. Again, I told you, they included me in this, and I felt very honored for that. It made me feel very comfortable. But, so that progressed throughout the night, and then about probably 4 o'clock in the morning, and mind you, we're 12,000 feet up on the top of a mountain. It starts thundering and lightning outside. Not much rain, a little bit of sprinkle, but thundering and lightning. It was kind of cool. It was cool backdrop for the music and the prayers and everything that was going on. But yeah, I'm trying to remember everything as I can here and not leave everything out, but I'm sure I won't get it all because some of it just stuck inside my head right now. I can't express it all. It's not something I can explain to you and you'll understand fully unless you were there. You'd have to be there. That's all I can say. Again, it's not some bunch of hippies on a bus in the 1970s hanging out in a teepee having some party go on. Nothing about that. So then, throughout the night, they also passed along this pail of water. Everybody took a drink of that, much as you wanted, and you passed that along. Again, people were dropping some of the water on themselves and saying prayers and being blessed by the water. So then, early in the morning, the sun was already up, and been a long night, boy. It is a long night. And then they brought in these 3 bowls of food. And the 3 bowls of food are sort of traditional foods that are indigenous to this area of what the Navajo people had back in the day. I won't get into all the ins and outs of that type of stuff. This is all about giving you the happy sides. But they had fruit, obviously. They had corn, which they take, and the blue corn, they grind it down almost to like a cornmeal or a flour texture, and then they make and mix it, I'm sure, with water, and I'm not sure all the ingredients, but there's not a lot to it. You mix it up and it becomes this paste, and I can only describe that as a blue, sort of tastes like cream of wheat without any sugar or anything. That's what it tastes like. That's what the texture is. And then they also had a bowl of meat, in this case, which was the deer that we shot last week. My neighbor Juan gave us the leg, gave my neighbors the leg, and they brought it up there, and they simmered that meat for about 12 hours, and then they shredded it, so it looked like shredded pork or shredded chicken type of texture, and they added a little salt to it, and that was the bowl full of meat. It was venison in this case. So you have fruit, which was strawberries, blueberries, blackberries, you had the blue mush, and you had the meat. So, again, more prayers are being said. I'm not sure exactly what's being said because I can't understand Navajo. I'm learning a few words. But then the bowls started coming around, and everybody would take, the first one was the fruit, I believe. Take a scoopful of the fruit. Again, blessings were going on. Passed it along. The next bowl came around, and it was blue mush. Took a scoop of that. Passed it along. And then the final bowl was the venison. And that came along. Took a scoop of that. You passed it along. The venison was really, really, really good. And then the water, again, throughout the night kept coming around. Then the very last thing we did was, before it was all over, because the sacred Navajo mountain is over here, you can see it about 1,000 feet up, I guess. You can see the tip of the mountain, and it's a sacred mountain to them. In fact, they don't even climb it. They won't go to the top. One of the elders told me, unless there's a really good reason, and I didn't ask them what the reasons were. I didn't want to ask a lot of questions, but they're not permitted to go to the top of the mountain. So in the morning, we all came out of the teepee, and we walked around in a circle, and everybody looked at the mountain. We said a little prayer to the mountain, and went back inside. But one of the last things I remember is one of the people there, that he was the guy that was the guy in charge of the fire all night. I don't want to use names. I'm trying to be respectful. I won't use any names or anything like that. But he was the fire guy. He'd bring in the sticks and place them and feed them in. What he said at the end was, before you leave here today, he said the mountain it's here for you to leave all your problems behind. Anything that's bothering you, any stress you have, any pain you have, any bad feelings you have. He said, leave it all here. Leave it here at the mountain. That's what the mountain's for. The mountain's to take this away from you. And just leave all your troubles here. When you go home, you can leave all that stuff behind. So, you know, there was a lot of thinking going on there for me. I was watching everything happen, how they feed the fire. I didn't know why yet. The significance of all this stuff. And I hope I did my best explaining this to you. I'm sure I left out some things. You know, and again, like I said, anybody watching this that can correct me or advance me on what I know about this, I'd love to hear from you. But that's the only way I can explain it. and try to give only certain details of it. And again, I'm real happy and honored to be able to be a part of this thing. And I hope to go back maybe next July. They have them all in between there too, but next July I might go back to this same spot. And you know, one thing I left out too was after this thing was all over and everybody broke up, there's a big giant feast that goes on. So while we were in the teepee, there was about maybe 5 or 6 people. Sometimes there's a lot more. In this case, there was about 5 or 6 people that were preparing this big feast. There were eggs and spam mixed in. There were sausages. There was ham. There was steak. There was a whole bunch of mutton that was cooked up because they butchered a sheep the day before. And you know, there was just this big giant feast going on. Fry bread, tortillas, a lot of native type traditional foods, coffee, tea, hot water, and things like that, you know. But sweets, I got out of there and I was craving sweets. I bit into a Danish and my God, I thought I was in heaven. And I don't eat a lot of sweets. Most people know me, don't know I don't eat a lot of sweets. But so that's my experience, and I hope everybody gets to learn a little bit about this. You can probably go online. I know I have, and looked up how it all plays out. There's some, if you Google Peyote meetings, there'll be a whole bunch of videos or at least pages that'll come up that you can read about it and learn about it. They tell you probably a lot more than I can. But I want to thank everybody involved, the people that put it on, Medicine Man, people that helped set it up, tear it down. A lot of these people came from 500 miles, 200-300 miles away to come put this on. No money involved. You're not hired out, but it was just an amazing thing to see. And by the next morning, they were calling me Lieutenant Dunbar from Dances with Wolves. It was funny, calling me brother, things like that. So, and family, my family. Well, like I said, they did bless my family throughout the night. They wished my children well. They know that I'm living out here alone, and that's nobody's fault but mine. But I'm not alone. Some days it feels like I'm alone, but I'm not alone.